Chapter 11. The chair was wheeled to the door at the other end of the room. Granny was radiant. All our party immediately thronged round her with congratulations. However eccentric Granny's behavior might be, her triumph covered a multitude of sins, and the general was no longer afraid of compromising himself in public by his relationship with such a strange woman. With a condescending and familiarly good-humored smile, as though humoring a child, he congratulated Granny. He was, however, evidently impressed, like all the other spectators. People talked all round and pointed at Granny. Many passed by to get a closer view of her. Mr. Astley was talking of her aside with two English acquaintances. Some majestic ladies gazed at her with majestic amazement, as though at a marvel. De Greux positively showered congratulations and smiles upon her. "Quelle victoire!" he said.
"Mais, madame, c'était de fou!"
Mademoiselle Blanche commented with an ingratiating smile.
"Yes, I just went and won 12,000 florins. 12, indeed. What about the gold? With the gold it makes almost 13. What is that in our money? Will it be 6,000?
I explained that it made more than 7, and in the present state of exchange might even amount to 8.
"Well, that's something worth having, 8,000. And you stay here, you noodles, and do nothing. Potapych, Marfa, did you see?"
"My goodness, how did you do it, ma'am? 8,000!"
exclaimed Marfa, wriggling.
There's 5 gold pieces for you. Here."
Potapych and Marfa flew to kiss her hand.
"And give the porters, too, a Friedrich d'or each. Give it them in gold, Alexey Ivanovitch. Why is that flunky bowing, and the other one, too? Are they congratulating me? Give them a Friedrich d'or, too."
"Madame la princesse, un pauvre expatrié, malheur continuel, les princes russes sont so généreux."
A person with mustaches and an obsequious smile in a threadbare coat and grey-coloured waistcoat came cringing about Granny's chair, waving his hat in his hand.
"Give him a Friedrich d'or, too. No, give him 2. That's enough, or there will be no end to them. Lift me up and carry me out. Praskovia,"
she turned to Polina Alexandrovna,
"I'll buy you a dress tomorrow, and I'll buy Mademoiselle... what's her name? Mademoiselle Blanche, isn't it? I'll buy her a dress, too. Translate that to her, Praskovia."
"Merci, madame."
Mademoiselle Blanche made a grateful curtsy while she exchanged an ironical smile with de Greux and the general. The general was rather embarrassed and was greatly relieved when we reached the avenue.
"Fedosia! Won't Fedosia be surprised?"
said Granny, thinking of the general's nurse.
"I must make her a present of a dress. Hey, Alexey Ivanovitch, give this to the poor man."
A man in rags, with bent back, passed us on the road and looked at us.
"And perhaps he is not a poor man, but a rogue, Granny."
"Give him a gulden, give it him."
I went up to the man and gave it him. He looked at me in wild amazement, but took the gulden, however. He smelt of spirits.
"And you, Alexey Ivanovitch, have you not tried your luck yet?"
"No, Granny."
"But your eyes were burning. I saw them."
"I shall try, Granny. I certainly shall later."
"And stake on 0 straight away. You will see. How much have you in hand?"
"Only 20 Friedrichs d'or, Granny."
"That's not much. I will give you 50 Friedrichs d'or. I will lend it if you like. Here, take this roll. But don't you expect anything all the same, my good man. I am not going to give you anything,"
she said, suddenly addressing the general. The latter winced, but he said nothing. De Grue frowned.
"Que diable! C'est un terrible vielle,"
he muttered to the general through his teeth.
"A beggar! A beggar! Another beggar!"
cried Granny.
"Give him a golden too, Alexey Ivanovitch."
This time it was a grey-headed old man with a wooden leg, in a long-skirted blue coat and with a long stick in his hand. He looked like an old soldier. But when I held out a gulden to him, he stepped back and looked at me angrily.
"Was ist der Teufel?"
he shouted, following up with a dozen oaths.
"Oh, he's a fool,"
cried Granny, dismissing him with a wave of her hand.
"Go on, I'm hungry. Now we'll have dinner directly, then I'll rest a little, and back here again."
"You want to play again, Granny?" I cried.
"What do you expect? That you should all sit here and sulk while I watch you?"
"Mais madame,"
De Grue drew near.
"les chances peuvent tenir. Une seule mauvaise chance et vous perdrez tout. Surtout avec votre jeu. C'est terrible. Vous perdrez absolument,"
chirped Mademoiselle Blanche.
"But what is it to do with all of you? I shouldn't lose your money, but my own. And where is that Mr. Astley?"
she asked me. "He stayed in the casino, Granny."
"I'm sorry. He's such a nice man."
On reaching home, Granny met the Oberkellner on the stairs, called him, and began bragging of her winnings. Then she sent for Fedosia, made her a present of 3 Friedrichsdor, and ordered a dinner to be served. Fedosia and Marfa hovered over her at dinner.
"I watched you, ma'am,"
Marfa cackled,
"and said to Potapitch, 'What does Our Lady want to do?' And the money on the table, saints alive, the money! I haven't seen so much money in the whole of my life, and all round were gentlefolk, nothing but gentlefolk sitting. 'And wherever do all these gentlefolk come from, Potapitch?' said I. 'May Our Lady herself help you,' I thought. I was praying for you, ma'am, and my heart was simply sinking, simply sinking. I was all of a tremble. Lord help her, I thought, and here the Lord has sent you luck. I've been trembling ever since, ma'am. I'm all of a tremble now."
"Alexey Ivanovitch, after dinner, at 4 o'clock, get ready and we'll go. Now, goodbye for a time. Don't forget to send for a doctor for me. I must drink the waters too. Go, or maybe you'll forget."
As I left Granny, I was in a sort of stupor. I tried to imagine what would happen now to all our people and what turn things would take. I saw clearly that they, especially the general, had not yet succeeded in recovering from the first shock. The fact of Granny's arrival instead of the telegram which they were expecting from hour to hour to announce her death, and consequently the inheritance of her fortune, had so completely shattered the whole fabric of their plans and intentions that Granny's further exploits at roulette threw them into positive bewilderment, and a sort of stupefaction seemed to have come over all of them. Meanwhile, this second fact was almost more important than the first, for though Granny had repeated twice that she would not give the general any money, yet, who knows? There was no need to give up all hope yet. De Grue, who was involved in all the general's affairs, had not lost hope. I am convinced that Mademoiselle Blanche, also much involved in the general's affairs, I should think so, to marry a general and with a considerable fortune, would not have given up hope, and would have tried all her fascinating arts upon Granny, in contrast with the proud and incomprehensible Paulina, who did not know how to curry favor with anyone. But now that Granny had had such success at roulette, now that Granny's personality had shown itself so clearly and so typically, a refractory and imperious old lady, et tombée en enfance, now perhaps all was lost. Why, she was as pleased as a child, so pleased that she would go on till she was ruined and had lost everything. Heavens, I thought, and God forgive me with a malignant laugh. Why, every Friedrich door Granny staked just now must have been a fresh sore in the General's heart, must have maddened de Grue and infuriated Mademoiselle de Comminges, who saw the cup slipping from her lips. Another fact, even in her triumph and joy of winning, when Granny was giving money away to everyone and taking every passer-by for a beggar, even then she had let fall to the General, "I'm not going to give you anything, though." That meant that she had fastened upon that idea, was sticking to it, had made up her mind about it. There was danger, danger. All these reflections were revolving in my mind as I mounted the front stairs from Granny's apartments to my garret in the very top story. All this interested me strongly. Though, of course, I could before have divined the strongest leading motives prompting the actors before me, yet I did not know for certain all the mysteries and intrigues of the drama. Paulina had never been fully open with me. Though it did happen at times that she revealed her feelings to me, yet I noticed that almost always after such confidences she would make fun of all she had said, or would try to obscure the matter and put it in a different light. Oh, she had hidden a great deal. In any case, I foresaw that the denouement of this mysterious and constrained position was at hand. One more shock, and everything would be ended and revealed. About my fortunes, which were also involved in all this, I scarcely troubled. I was in a strange mood. I had only 20 Friedrich's d'or in my pocket. I was in a foreign land without a job or means of livelihood, without hope, without prospects, and I did not trouble my head about it. If it had not been for the thought of Paulina, I should have abandoned myself to the comic interest of the approaching catastrophe, and would have been shouting with laughter. But I was troubled about Paulina. Her fate was being decided, I divined that. But I regret to say that it was not altogether her fate that troubled me. I wanted to fathom her secrets. I wanted her to come to me and say, "I love you." And if not that, if that was senseless insanity, then, well, what was there to care about? Did I know what I wanted? I was like one demented. All I wanted was to be near her, in the halo of her glory, in her radiance, always, forever, all my life. I knew nothing more. And could I leave her? In their passage on the third story, I felt as though something nudged me. I turned round, and 20 paces or more from me, I saw, coming out of a door, Paulina. She seemed waiting, and as soon as she saw me, beckoned to me. "Paulina Alexandrovna!" "Hush!" she said. "Imagine," I whispered to her. "I felt as though someone had nudged me just now. I looked round. You! It seems as though there were a sort of electricity from you." "Take this letter," Paulina articulated anxiously with a frown, probably not hearing what I had said, "and give it into Mr. Astley's own hands at once. Make haste, I beg you. There is no need of an answer. He will—" She did not finish. "Mr. Astley?" I repeated in surprise. But Paulina had already disappeared behind the door. Aha, so they are in correspondence. I ran at once, of course, to Mr. Astley, first to his hotel, where I did not find him, then to the casino, where I hurried through all the rooms, and at last, as I was returning home in vexation, almost in despair, I met him by chance, with a party of Englishmen and Englishwomen on horseback. I beckoned to him, stopped him, and gave him the letter. We had not time even to exchange a glance. But I suspect that Mr. Astley purposely gave rein to his horse. Was I tortured by jealousy? Anyway, I was in an utterly shattered condition. I did not even want to find out what they were writing to one another about. And so he was trusted by her. Her friend, I thought. And that is clear. And when has he had time to become her friend? But is there love in the case? Of course not. Common sense whispered to me. But common sense alone counts for little in such cases. Anyway, this, too, had to be cleared up. Things were growing unpleasantly complicated. Before I had time to go into the hotel, first the porter and then the Oberkellner, coming out of his room, informed me that I was wanted, that I had been asked for. 3 times they had sent to ask, where was I? That I was asked to go as quickly as possible to the general's rooms. I was in the most disagreeable frame of mind. In the general's room I found, besides the general himself, de Greux and Mademoiselle Blanche, alone, without her mother. Her mother was evidently an official one, only used for show. But when it came to real business, she acted for herself. And probably the woman knew little of her so-called daughter's affairs. They were, however, consulting warmly about something, and the doors of the study were actually locked, which had never happened before. Coming to the door, I heard loud voices, de Greux's insolent and malignant voice, Blanche's shrill fury, and the general's pitiful tones, evidently defending himself about something. Upon my entrance they all, as it were, pulled themselves up and restrained themselves. De Greux smoothed his hair and forced a smile into his angry face, that horrid official French smile which I so detest. The crushed and desperate general tried to assume an air of dignity, but it was a mechanical effort. Only Mademoiselle Blanche's countenance, blazing with anger, scarcely changed. She only ceased speaking while she fixed her eyes upon me in impatient expectation. I may mention that hitherto she had treated me with extraordinary casualness, had even refused to respond to my bows, and had simply declined to see me. "Alexey Ivanovitch," the general began in a soft and mollifying tone, "allow me to tell you that it is strange, exceedingly strange. In fact, your conduct in regard to me and my family. In fact, it is exceedingly strange." "Eh, ce n'est pas ça," de Greux interposed with vexation and contempt. There's no doubt he was the leading spirit. "Mon cher monsieur, notre cher général se trompe in taking up this tone." I translate the rest of his speech in Russian. "What he meant to say, that is to warn you, or rather to beg you most earnestly not to ruin him. Yes, indeed, not to ruin him. I make use of that expression." "But how? I interrupted. "Why, you are undertaking to be the guide, or how shall I express it, of this old woman, cette pauvre terrible vieille." De Greux himself hesitated. "But you know she'll lose everything. She will gamble away her whole fortune. You know yourself, you have seen yourself how she plays. If she begins to lose, she will never leave off, from obstinacy, from anger. She will lose everything. She will gamble away everything, and in such cases one can never regain one's losses, and then, the general put in, then you will ruin the whole family. I and my family are her heirs. She has no nearer relations. I tell you openly, my affairs are in a bad way, a very bad way. You know my position to some extent. If she loses a considerable sum, or even, Lord help us, her whole fortune, what will become of me, of my children?" The general looked round at Degrue. "Of me?" He looked round at Mademoiselle Blanche, who turned away from him with contempt. "Alexey Ivanovitch, save us! Save us!"
"But how, General? How can I? What influence have I in the matter?"
"Refuse! Refuse! Give her up!"
"Then someone else will turn up," I said. "Ce n'est pas ça! Ce n'est pas ça!" Degrue interrupted again. "Que diable! No, don't desert her, but at least advise her, dissuade her, draw her away. Don't let her play too much. Distract her in some way." "But how can I do that? If you would undertake the task yourself, Monsieur Degrue," I added, as naively as I could. Here I caught a rapid, fiery, questioning glance from Mademoiselle Blanche at Monsieur Degrue, and in Degrue's own face there was something peculiar, something he could not himself disguise. "The point is, she won't accept me now," Degrue cried with a wave of his hand. "If only, later on—" Degrue looked rapidly and meaningly at Mademoiselle Blanche. "Oh, mon cher Monsieur Alexis, soyez si bon." Mademoiselle Blanche herself took a step towards me with a most fascinating smile. She seized me by both hands and pressed them warmly. Damn it all! That diabolical face knew how to change completely in one moment. At that instant her face was so imploring, so sweet. It was such a childlike and even mischievous smile. At the end of the phrase she gave me such a sly wink, unseen by all the rest. She meant to do for me completely, and it was successfully done, only it was horribly coarse. Then the general leapt up, positively leapt up. "Alexey Ivanovitch, forgive me for beginning as I did just now. I did not mean that at all. I beg you, I beseech you, I bow down before you in Russian style. You alone can save us. Mademoiselle de Comminges and I implore you. You understand, of course." He besought me, indicating Mademoiselle Blanche with his eyes. He was a very pitiful figure. At that instant there came 3 subdued and respectful knocks at the door. It was opened. The corridor attendant was knocking, and a few steps behind him stood Potapych. They came with messages from Granny. They were charged to find and bring me at once. "She is angry," Potapych informed me. "But it is only 3:30. "She could not get to sleep. She kept tossing about, and then at last she got up, sent for her chair and for you. She's at the front door now." "Quelle mégère!" cried Degrue. I did, in fact, find Granny on the steps, out of all patience at my not being there. She could not wait till 4 o'clock. "Come," she cried, and we set off again to roulette.